स्कूल में या बाकी लोग भी, बच्चे लोग या टीचर लोग बोलते थे कि तुम लोग तो एसटी से बिलोंग करते हो, तो तुम्हें अच्छा पढ़ के क्या करोगे और क्यों पढ़ना है तुम्हें, क्योंकि तुम लोगों को तो रिजर्वेशन मिल जाएगा।
आरक्षण हकीकत में अगर माना जाए तो यह केवल एक राजनीतिक मुद्दा है और इससे देश में केवल और केवल आग लगाने का कार्य किया जाता रहा है। हर व्यक्ति देश का भगत सिंह और चंद्रशेखर का समर्थन करता है, लेकिन चलता गांधी की नीति से है। इसीलिए रिजर्वेशन इज अ पॉइजन इन इंडिया।
पब्लिक यूनिवर्सिटीज़ की फ़ीस कम होती है, लेकिन फिर भी जो लोग आर्थिक रूप से कमज़ोर है उनके लिए वो फ़ीस भी ज़्यादा होती है। वो वहाँ पे आया, उसको वो सीट वेस्ट हो गई, उसको एडमिशन नहीं मिला, उसकी तो पूरी लाइफ की प्लानिंग चेंज हो गई ना।
1%, 2%, 3%, हाँ उनके साथ मान सकते हैं कि गलत हुआ, जो गलत हुआ वो बिल्कुल गलत है, बट हमें देखना पड़ेगा कि मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन कौन से, कहाँ, किस समाज से आ रही, किस कम्युनिटी से आ रही।
एक चेक एंड बैलेंस जरूर हमें बनाना चाहिए, क्रिएट करना चाहिए। वो पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज इसलिए क्रिएट नहीं करती हैं क्योंकि उनके पास पॉलिटिकल विल नहीं है।
जिनके पास जीवन में कम है उन्हें कानून में ज़्यादा मिलना चाहिए।
Hello everyone, welcome to the special edition of the NewsTrack tonight. India's caste debate today hinges on 3 C's: caste, compensation and change. Caste-based reservation compensates centuries of exclusion for Dalits, STs and OBCs, leveling an uneven field amidst inherited privilege. Yet critics argue it perpetuates divisions. We at India Today Group are excited to introduce you to 3C. Candid, Constructive Conversations, a groundbreaking platform where we bring together individuals with polar opposite views, grounded in lived experiences, and have them engage in empathy-driven, issue-focused dialogue. Because India needs dialogue, not debates. Because disagreement need not mean disrespect. Because behind every opinion is a story worth hearing. 3C is where we listen, share, challenge, connect, and find common ground. But first, here's a small excerpt of that engaging conversation.
रिजर्वेशन एक ऐसा टूल है, एक ऐसा वे है जिसमें जो समाज के बहुत ही पिछड़े समाज, जो समाज में पिछड़ गए, तो उनको मेन स्ट्रीम में लाने का और एक उनको जीने का अधिकार देना। हम उनको अब इस रिजर्वेशन के बाद हम उन्हें एक इंसान मानने लगे। उससे पहले तुम उस कम्युनिटी समाज को तो इंसान ही नहीं मानते थे, उनको हम जानवर से ज़्यादा बुरा मानते थे।
इट इज़ अबाउट द सोशल डिग्निटी ऑफ अ पर्सन। वो कह रहा है साहब मुझे पैसे नहीं चाहिए, साहब आप जिस कुर्सी पे बैठ रहे हो मैं इसमें बराबर में क्यों नहीं बैठ सकता। जायज़ उसका सवाल, मेरे पास जवाब नहीं है।
हमें सोशली रिकॉग्नाइज ही नहीं किया जाता, इवन अभी भी नहीं रिकॉग्नाइज किया जाता। इवन इफ हम लोग डिग्रीज उतना हासिल कर लेंगे या उनके लेवल तक हम पढ़ भी लेंगे, बट हमें अभी भी रिकॉग्निशन नहीं मिलता। इवन इफ हम लोग हाई पोस्ट में जाके बैठेंगे तो उन्होंने यही बोलेंगे कि ये तो ट्राइबल है या आदिवासी है, तो इनसे हम क्यों सलाह लेंगे।
ये नहीं कंपेयर नहीं कर सकते। जो दिल्ली एनसीआर में बैठा, मुंबई में बैठा बंदे के रिसोर्स, जो उनके पास रिसोर्सेज है, और जो मुंगेर और छपड़ा जैसे छोटे से गांव में बैठा, वो रिसोर्सेज वो नहीं है, वो चीजें।
तो वही तो प्रोवाइड करने का हम वही तो प्रयत्न है कि जब वो रिसोर्सेज प्रोवाइड हो जाएंगे, जब वो एक तरीके से इक्वालिटी वहाँ क्रिएट हो जाएगी कि जो बच्चा दिल्ली में पढ़ रहा है वही सेम एजुकेशन बच्चा उस गाँव में पढ़ रहा है, तब मेरिट के ऊपर बात आएगी।
बिल्कुल यही,
तब मेरिट के ऊपर बात आएगी।
वही तो यही एग्जैक्टली वही हम चाहते हैं।
रिसोर्सेज प्रोवाइड की जाती हैं, बहुत सारे ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस करते हैं, बट फिर वही हो जाता है ना कि वो फॉलो अप नहीं रहता है। हाँ, वो बस दे दिए गए हैं, उसके बाद फॉलो अप कोई लेता नहीं है।
हम यदि ये कहें कि रिजर्वेशन जो है वो आर्थिक आधार पे मिलना चाहिए, तो हम असल में ये मान रहे हैं कि रिजर्वेशन एक गरीबी उन्मूलन कार्यक्रम है कि यदि आप आर्थिक आधार पे आर्थिक रूप से कमजोर लोगों को दोगे तो वो ऊपर आएंगे। लेकिन आर्थिक, सामाजिक और राजनीतिक तीन रास्ते हैं।
क्या हम ऐसी कोई व्यवस्था को क्रिएट कर सकते हैं जहां पर हम इस बेनिफिट को ऑप्ट आउट कर लें कि अब हम समाज के उस दबे कुचले वर्ग से उठ करके एक ऐसे पायदान पे आ गए जहां हमारी सोशल डिग्निटी इंश्योर होती है, जहां हमारी इकोनॉमिकल इक्वालिटी अपॉर्चुनिटी इंश्योर होती है, जहां मेरी एम्प्लॉयमेंट इनसिक्योरिटी नहीं है मुझे। तो अब जब हम उस पेडेस्टल पे आ जाएं तो क्या हम ऑप्ट आउट कर दें, हम कह दें क्योंकि आज भी अगर मुझे फॉर्म भरना हो कहीं पर दाखिला लेने का या कोई नौकरी करने का, तो देयर आर ओनली 3 ऑप्शंस, 3 एज इन SC ST OBC एंड जनरल।
उत्पीड़न हर वर्ग का होता है, हर व्यक्ति का होता है। इसीलिए जो कमज़ोर है, गरीब है और पीड़ित है, जो वाकई में असहाय रूप में देखे जाते हैं, उनके साथ मतभेद हर जगह होता है, वो जातिगत रूप से नहीं होता है। इसलिए मेरा तो अंतिम बस यही है हमें राजनेताओं को समझना पड़ेगा, हमें इस देश की राजनीति को समझना पड़ेगा, हमें उनके मुंह पर तमाचा मारना पड़ेगा, हमें उनसे प्रश्न करने होंगे क्यों हमें बांटा जा रहा है।
एक बहुत मौलिक सा सिद्धांत है कि दोज हु हैव लेस इन लाइफ शुड हैव मोर इन लॉ। रिजर्वेशन वो रास्ता है जो समाज के उस तबके को के लिए रास्ता बना सकता है जो थोड़ा पीछे रह गया।
Let me bring in the guests now. Dr. Suraj Yengde is author of Caste Matters. He joins me from London. Gaurav Jaiswal is a social and political activist, also the founder of Agrini. He's joining me from Seoni in Madhya Pradesh. Siddharth Shankar Dubey is an advocate of Lucknow High Court. Narendra Jadhav is a former member of parliament, economist, educationist, and also an author. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Yengde, I'm going to begin with you. You have written about structural humiliation and Dalit lives in your book Caste Matters. Can any conversation then on merit in India be honest without first acknowledging this history?
Marya, it's good to see you again, and thank you for pioneering this debate, especially after 6 December, the day of observance of Dr. Ambedkar's death anniversary. I think the merit itself is a very tricky concept, and it becomes flawed if we do not account to various structural barriers or accountabilities that do not fit into the making of merit. In India, the basic structure that makes up merit is what the society and culture in conjoint prepare us to face, and this is caste. Caste can operate in various ways and various materialities. So when people say it's about merit, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the idea of merit. You know, we need merit. But how do we measure the merit is the problem. We measure merit in a very arbitrary way, in a very discounted fashion. Now we have the examination. We pass exam, like I became a lawyer in India on account of rote learning. Can you imagine? Like I was doing mugging up and going to exams and giving my exams and then becoming. So is that a metric of one's intelligence? So we have a very flawed system that doesn't account into person's background, creativity, many other factors that make an individual and their contribution to that specific subject topic. And that's why we cannot elaborate a dialogue on merit without really sustaining our attention to what really makes a person worthy of contributing to that specific discourse or knowledge or whatever domain area they work in.
Okay.
We usually assess merit in this context, Maryam, solely account of what kind of names you have, what kind of background you have, what kind of pedigree you have. That's not truly representative of India's vibrant, dynamic, and enlarging demography that we see today.
Come in on this point specifically, Gaurav. From your work on the ground, what has reservation tangibly changed in the life of a first generation SC, ST, OBC student or any kind of a job seeker?
Multiple things, Marya, multiple things. Reservation has changed. So the place right now I'm connected from in this conversation is called Seoni. Specifically, this village, the panchayat from where I'm talking to is called Kurai. It's a tribal panchayat. Right now, the sitting sarpanch of this panchayat, her name is Taruna. Taruna used to be a student in a center we used to run like 10 years before. She comes from a tribal background. She's a tribal girl. She was able to get her education and later get into politics and now serving as an elected public representative. There are hundreds and thousands of such examples around. I'll like to quote another one. One of our students, his name is Naveen. He right now serves with Indian Railways. He comes from a scheduled caste background. Right now, after being in service for a few years, is trying to mobilize more such people working in different government jobs to mobilize some money to support more students coming from scheduled caste, OBC, scheduled tribe background from the area. So there are hundreds and thousands of such examples. There's why just first generation? I'll say there are second generation and third generation also. So if we want people to, like the examples I quoted are the people who were able to get into government jobs or who were able to become public representatives in their first generation. But I'm quite sure that the coming generations of these people will become IAS officers. They'll reach much bigger positions. Taruna may have become a sarpanch, but maybe someone from her generation will become a prime minister at some point of time in this country. So this is not just about first generation also.
Yes. So that's an important, example that you give, because Gaurav, we have several such examples amidst us. And that's why we say that reservation, the intent with which it started, perhaps served its purpose to some level or to some extent. Siddharth, let's talk about that original intent. What was the original intent behind reservation? Compensation for justice or an instrument to secure substantive equality?
So, yeah, Marya, you raised a nice question. And when we talk about the intention of caste-based reservation, we must acknowledge the debates of Dr. Ambedkar while being in the Constituent Assembly, where he specifically mentioned that the caste-based discrimination is prevalent in India. He acknowledged it, but at the same time, he said that certain measures are to be undertaken in order to ensure that they get the so expected social justice and equality, which was long expected, and they were subjected to those discriminations. But it cannot be something in perpetuity. It needs to be temporary till the time the social justice, the inequality, all these issues are addressed. So basically, whenever, like K. Munshi ji ne bhi yahi kaha tha, that it cannot be uncontrolled. It has to be measured, it has to be kept under restrictions, and that's how it got evolved over time. And constitution, our constitution itself is a very evolving document. And laws, since I believe we have another panelist who comes from a legal background, and he
yes. So for the viewers, Gaurav and Siddharth were part of that larger conversation which happened as part of the 3Cs project. So you can go online and listen to their views in a more elaborate fashion. But let me bring in Narendra Jadhav. From an economist's lens, what does the evidence tell us? Has reservation improved educational quest, educational quality, and employment outcomes for these groups like the SCs, STs and the OBCs?
Well, the short answer is yes, it has improved, but not substantially. To take a long-term view, I would like to cite from a big study. Everybody knows the concept of GDP, gross domestic product. One OECD economist did a very interesting study about how the Indian economy, how the old civilization like India and China might have evolved over a 2,000-year period. It turns out that India's share in the world GDP was as high as 31.5% in year one when the Gregorian calendar started. And over the years, it has been falling precipitously. And by 1991, when there was an unprecedented macroeconomic crisis in India, it had fallen to less than 4%. Now, it has taken a U-turn, and now it is going up. And presently, it is in the range of 7 or 8%. So what explains this precipitous fall, and what explains the upward turn? What explains the precipitous fall over the 2,000 years, nearly 2,000 years, is nothing but caste discrimination. It's very simple. Logic behind it is very simple. When only a handful, only a fraction of the society is allowed access to education, and all the remaining people are denied the opportunities for education, how can that society grow? How can that economy grow? And even if it grows, how can it sustain it over a period of time? That is precisely what has happened. I believe that the caste discrimination has undoubtedly slowed down India's economic growth over a long period of time, and now it is taking a U-turn. To that extent, one can say that there is a distinct positive gain because of the reservations.
Professor Jadhav, how do you then interpret the persistent
If you look
gaps?
at the,
Okay, sir, please go ahead.
No. I was saying that you take any range of socio-economic indicators. The socio-economic indicators will tell you that over a period of time since the independence, if you take, or from 1951 when the planning process started in our country, if you look at the socio-economic indicators, you will see that the gap between the so-called upper caste and the so-called other classes, the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and OBCs, has narrowed. It has narrowed, but it has not been eliminated. So something has been done. Tried as it may sound, much has been done, but much remains to be done. That would be my statement for this evening.
Then let me ask you to elaborate a little more, Dr. Jadhav. How do you then interpret the persistent gaps in income, land ownership and literacy across castes even after decades of reservation? Is it the failure of the policy or perhaps depth of original inequality?
That is because the caste discrimination has changed over a period of time. Once upon a time, it was in a blunt form. That blunt form is gone. Now it resides in the mindset of the people, and it has become more sophisticated. It is more pernicious in this sophisticated form. And therefore, implementation of reservation is certainly grossly inadequate. In fact, the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes and OBCs, they have a double whammy. Because on one hand, what is offered to them by the Constitution is not adequately and effectively implemented, and on the other hand, a large number of people believe that so much is being done for them and time has come to stop it. I think this is a double whammy against the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and the OBCs.
Okay, Siddharth, based on your own experience, does the introduction of EWS, which is extreme backward, weaker section quotas, without caste criteria, strengthen the case for universal economic-based affirmative action, or does it dilute the core logic of caste-based reservation?
No, the idea of economical weaker section based reservation is a remarkable step taken by the government. So nonetheless, you have to acknowledge that there is a prevalent economical disparity in different sections of the society. And those are prevalent in the general sections as well. OBCs may be hain, SC/STs may be hain. So you cannot sway away your face from that. You have to acknowledge the prevalent situation. So economical weaker section bana karke kahin na kahin the government has taken up the task of addressing the economical disparity prevalent in the general community, because the general community was the primary victim of this whole setup. Acha, when you are addressing the social justice part, you cannot shun the idea by saying कि it is just not about economical disparity. It is about social justice, political equality, and everything. So economical aspect is certainly an important aspect which ensures the livelihood of a person, of an individual. So to address that, this measure is nothing but the best model brought in by the government.
Okay, just I have enough time for Dr. Suraj Yengde's the last and final comments. Dr. Yengde, is the resentment against reservation actually resentment against loss of unspoken caste privilege, or do you see genuine policy flaws that need reform?
I think the later, and as well as the previous. I mean, it's not a simple binary that we can draw at this point. But on the question of economic mobility, we have to look at I'd like to draw attention to the 55th National Sample Survey data. Is looking at informal formal sector. I think we are having anxieties about a very tiny percentage of India's labor force capturing certain government-aided institutions or positions that are available. Less than 3% of government formal sector is employed that is eligible to receive reservation. more than 93% in India is informal sector. There's not even reservation there. And of that category, if you see, Oxfam had this report in 2010, which was categorizing according on the economic lines, which are as follows: the extremely poor, the marginal, and the vulnerable. And you know what? Among these four poorest categories, 89% were from Dalit and Adivasi background. And Muslims who work in informal sector were 85%. And let me tell you, the women who are of the lower caste were 95%. So when we make an argument, an economic incentive to do this, we are essentially talking about people who are already available. So the constitutional policy, Maryam, really gives an adherence to the economic disadvantage. It just is sore in the eye because people like Suraj Yengde or Professor Jadhav tend to use that policy that are out there and really make good out of it and shove in the face of those who deny that there is a merit, there is a talent, and there is an availability of pool of data that can really subvert this notion of casteism, where people like us who are now formally dressed and present to yourself, which is not used to the eyes of upper caste, dominant caste people, because they are often used to seeing us carrying the manure or doing manual labor for
I
them.
think that's the right note on which, or perhaps a food for thought on which I would like to end this discussion. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor Jadhav, Dr. Yengde, Gaurav and Siddharth. Let's continue this conversation online, and do tune in and watch that entire debate, which has triggered or started a discussion which we are calling the 3C project. Thanks so much for watching.